video we're going to talk about 5 things that I wish I knew when I started Flutter. And this video is brought to you by Shannon Galway, which is the official sponsor of this video. He's supporting me on Patreon, which you can find down in the description. If you like this kind of videos, please let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel and putting some comments down below what you would like to see next. But the first thing that I wish I knew was actually to start small projects. And what I mean with that from a personal experience was that my first project was actually quite big, which meant in the end that I actually didn't finish it. I probably worked with it on about 6 months or so, and probably longer, and it never got to see the light of day. So a small tip there is to start your project and create them as small as possible. If you have then released them, you can actually just build them up. But my recommendation would be to build as many small projects as you can, so you actually get the experience from creating an app to releasing the app, and then marketing and everything in between. And then of course, if you have more experience, you can create bigger applications. But for anyone out there that's having a bit of problems creating apps, I would recommend starting with small projects. My second tip is actually learning some simple state management. So you can do this in a bunch of different ways. There are MobX, there are provider, there are a bunch of different solutions. I'm going to show you a very, very simple thing that I wish I knew that I could do. And let's just go to the code, or actually just show the application first. So here's a super simple application. We can press this button and that would update the variable right here. But what if I go back to the code, let's close this. What if we actually had a more complex widget? So right now we just have a text which says change title on the bottom. And then for the text, we have a variable called title. And when we press that button, we change the state of that title. And this is using the set state. But what I'm going to show you right now is how we can do that with another method. And that's actually using something called a value notifier. And there's also change notifier. You maybe heard of them before. But simply, if we want to have, for example, a value that we provide down in the widget tree, we can create this simple class. I will just call it title notifier, which extends this value notifier. I'm just going to set the type to string, but this could be a model or any kind of object that you want. And then we just add a method. So for example, if this method is called, our value will be updated to notify title. And the way we use this, if we go and navigate up, I'm actually using provider. So if you don't have that, you can simply add it into your dependencies. So what we're simply doing is that when we're displaying our homepage, we're using a listenable provider and giving that title notifier. And we give that title notifier a initial value of change title. So remember now that we have a string value, and that value is has the value of change title. We're using that title notifier then to update it. So if we go down, we can see that I've already done on the onPressed, also called a context.read. We get that title notifier that we're passing down, and we call that update title. So I have a complex widget with title deeper down. That's just a widget that contains another widget, and then down here we have that text. So to do that without provider, you would have to pass it down in the constructor. But now we're just using provider and then use a consumer where we want to listen to that value. So we can see here that we get the title notifier, get the title notifier object, and then we just type title notifier.value, and this is actually the string value. So if we just save this and rerun that and go back to the application, this is very similar still. There's no fancy UI here. So this one is used with set state, and this one is used with value notifier. So if we now click this, we change them both at the same time. So there's nothing really fancy here. We're just ignoring the way that we pass down a value. And instead we're using provider and a simple value notifier. And we can use change notifier. So value notifier uses for a single type. You can have, for example, a string and an object or so on. But we can also have change notifier, which just adds another layer so we can build up more complex classes. So that's one of the things that I wish I knew when I started. So the third thing is actually learn to extract widgets and methods. So to give a very basic example, we can have a column, and this column can contain, for example, text1, and text1, text1, text1. So that would give us just a widget with multiple text in it. So if you show that, we can see that we have text1, 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 and text1. So we could do something very simple, and that's extracting it to a method. There are times when you extract methods, and there's times when you do it with widgets. But I'm going to just show you the different ways of doing it. So for example, now we just have a method called build column, and this is going to return our column. And of course you can have it have another name for it. And that would pretty much just render this widget. So this is just a normal method which returns a widget instead. So if we would want to, we could also build a widget with it. So for example, if I just copy this code right here again, we have this column here again, and we can extract into a widget. I'm going to call it build column now again, but that's not a good naming convention, but it's just to show you right now. And that would actually build a stateless widget. Most of the times this is preferred, but you can do whatever fits your project. I usually for myself build more reusable components with widgets, and then for small bits and pieces of a widget and or page or whatever, I could use a function. But that's up to you. So for the fourth tip is actually start to test your project early, and you can do this very, very simply. I'm just going to show you a way of doing simple unit tests. So if we go back here and we go to test, and we have a widget test here right now. I'm going to just replace this and create a normal unit test. I'm going to remove all of the code here. So what I mean with unit test is, for example, this class right here. We have a method called update title, and for now I always wanted to set the value to notify title, or even better, we want to always, when we call this, we want to give it the name update title or the title. So we can use a super simple test to just make sure that it always does that. So even if we would change this, that wouldn't matter. So first off, we give it a good name. So there are a bunch of different ways you can name your tests. I like to use the given when then naming, which means that you just give it a name, for example, given, so for example, given title notifier, when, and then we check the method name, update title, then change title to title. That's just an example. And then we can then very simply create this class. And when we create this class, if we just import it, we're going to give it a value, and the value is, for example, no title. And then we want to simply call, for example, expect. And we expect final title notifier. We expect, so if we check this, we can have a actual and a matcher. So the actual is title notify.value, but we expect it to be, let's say, title. So right now, if we would run this test, it would result in an error, or that it wouldn't work. And we can check this output if we get output. So here we have the output. We can see that we expected a title, but we actually got a no title. So that's because we didn't call the method. So let's call the method, which is called title notifier dot update title. So now if we run this test, we should see that it passes. And this is a very, very simple test you can do, and at least it helps a little. And you can start building your application up from that. At least you have something to start with. So try to make it as simple as possible, then you can always scale up your tests. So the fifth tip and the last tip is design your app before you create it. So what I mean with that is, for example, you can use Figma, you can use Adobe XD, you can use a wireframe tool, any kind of way that you actually design the app before you start to develop it. Development takes a lot of time. So before you put yourself in that spot where you develop an app for 2 and 3 months or even more, and the app doesn't look any good, then what you should do is actually design it first, create a design that you like, and then start to implement it. And if you don't like design, you can always look that up before, but that will give you something to work with when you're actually creating the application. The application will take a lot of time even though you have a design, but at least it will remove the time you spend on redesigning the app. Because when you create the design first, you follow that design, create the app, complete it, release it. If you want to update the design, then you update the design, do a change of the design, and then update the app. So always try to finish your projects. That's the one, like the most important part. If you like this video, please let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. I hope these tips helped you as much as I wanted them in the beginning. If you like this video, you can also check out my other videos here. You can also check out Patreon to support me. We also have a Discord, Facebook. You can find all of that in the description. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.